Every place has rules. Most of them are written down. Posted on walls, explain clearly this place was different. There was only one rule. No one remembered who made it. And no one remembered anyone ever breaking it. Before we get into the story, if you enjoy slow, unsettling horror, the kind that crawls under your skin and stays there, subscribe now. Because this story is about what happens when someone finally asks why that rule exists. No one ever talked about the rule directly. It was an unspoken agreement, a collective instinct. They just avoided one thing, one specific hallway, one particular door at the end of it. And one simple action, opening that door. It wasn't locked. There was no guard posted outside. It wasn't barricaded or chained shut. It was just ignored. Newcomers to the place learned quickly. Not because someone pulled them aside and whispered a warning, but because they noticed the subtle, synchronized behavior of everyone else. As a group approached that section of the building, everyone would simultaneously look away. Their paths would curve just enough to bypass it. Their conversations would falter for a moment and then resume, as if navigating around an invisible obstacle. It was a shared blind spot, a part of their world they had all agreed to unsee. The door itself was unremarkable. Plain wood, a simple brass knob, no different from any other. But to the people there, it might as well have been a gaping chasm into nothingness. Its very presence was a low hum of dread in the back of their minds, a question they had all learned not to ask. The most disturbing part was how the rule spread. There were no meetings, no official announcements, no handbook with a section on forbidden zones. Yet, without fail, everyone knew. Children who were too young to understand complex instructions would instinctively stop at the threshold of the hallway, a look of vague unease on their faces before turning back to their games. Visitors, just there for a day, would walk with purpose until they neared the hallway and then, inexplicably, hesitate. They'd find themselves stopping, turning away, choosing another route without a conscious thought. Later, if you asked any of them why they didn't go down that hall, none of them could give you a clear answer. They'd stammer, searching for a reason. It felt cold, one might say. "I just got a bad feeling," another would offer. But the truth was, they didn't know. The rule wasn't taught, it was absorbed. It was in the air, a silent contagion of avoidance that infected everyone who stayed long enough. It was a perfect, self-perpetuating system of obedience, built on a foundation of shared, unexplained fear. For generations, this silent pact held, until one person finally asked the question. He was new, but not new enough to be completely naive. He'd seen the collective aversion, felt the cold spot in the building's layout. But unlike the others, the mystery didn't settle into quiet acceptance for him. It festered. One afternoon, during a quiet lunch, he broke the silence. He didn't shout it or make a scene. He just asked in a calm, curious voice, what happens if someone breaks it? The rule about that door? The clatter of forks and spoons stopped. The gentle murmur of conversation died instantly. The room went silent. It wasn't an awkward, polite silence. It was a heavy, fearful silence, thick with something ancient and terrified. Eyes darted around, looking everywhere but at him. Finally, an old woman, someone who had been there longer than anyone, whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "I don't remember." And that's when a new, more chilling realization washed over the room. They tried to think back. Had anyone asked that question before? Surely, in all those years, someone must have. And as they searched their memories, they found only gaps. Blank spaces where people should have been. Everyone who had ever asked that question before was gone. He didn't make a grand declaration. He didn't announce his intention to be a rebel. He just stopped following the rule. It started small. One day, he didn't avert his gaze as he walked past the hallway. He looked right down it, at the plain door sitting in the gloom at the far end. The next day, he took a single step into the hallway. The air grew still. Nothing happened. No alarms, no sudden darkness. Just the profound, unnerving silence of the space. He took another step. The dust motes in the air seemed to hang motionless. A few people from the main room had noticed. They stood frozen at the entrance, watching him, their faces pale masks of disbelief and terror. They were waiting for something loud, something violent. A clap of thunder. A monstrous roar, something final. Instead, the change was subtle. The lights in the main room seemed to dim, just a fraction. The building's low hum, a sound they were all so used to they never noticed it. shifted in pitch, becoming a low, attentive thrum. It felt like the place itself had woken up. As if, after all these years of being ignored, it was finally paying attention. They had misunderstood the rule completely. It wasn't about punishment. There was no boogeyman waiting behind the door to punish transgressors. The rule was about containment. It was a quarantine protocol. Whatever was connected to that door, to that space, was never meant to be seen. It was never meant to be acknowledged. Not because it was actively hostile or dangerous in the way a predator is, but because its very nature was parasitic to perception. Once you noticed it, truly noticed it, it noticed you back. The act of observing it was the act of opening a door inside your own mind, inviting it in. The rule wasn't there to protect them from something behind the door. It was there to protect the thing from them, to keep it dormant, unseen, and therefore inert. By looking, by questioning, by stepping into that hall, he hadn't broken a law. He had broken a seal. He had made himself visible to something that exists only in the periphery, and now it was focusing on him. He never screamed. He didn't run. He didn't even flinch. He just reached the door, placed his hand on the knob, and stopped responding. One moment, he was a person, filled with curiosity and defiance. The next, he was just a shape, still standing, still breathing, a shallow, automatic rhythm. But he wasn't there anymore. His eyes were open, but they were looking at nothing, or perhaps at everything. The others who had watched, paralyzed, finally broke their stupor. They called his name, nothing. They cautiously approached, waving a hand in front of his face. No reaction. He was a statue of flesh and bone, an empty vessel. In the days that followed, arguments broke out in hushed, terrified whispers. Some swore he simply vanished into thin air a day later. Others, more disturbingly, began to insist he had never existed at all. Their memories of him were fraying, becoming thin and unreliable, like a photograph left out in the sun. That's when the rule changed. It mutated. Now there were two rules. The first one remained. You do not go down the hallway. You do not look at the door. You do not acknowledge its existence. This rule was now followed with a new, frantic desperation. But a second rule had been born from the incident. A new layer of silence. The new rule was, you never, ever talk about the person who broke the first one. You don't say his name. You don't describe what he did. You don't mention the question he asked because they discovered something new. Every time someone tried to speak of him, the words would catch in their throat. They would open their mouth to say his name, and a different word would come out, or just a choked gasp of air. They couldn't finish the sentence. Their own minds were actively erasing him, patching over the memory to protect the whole. The man who asked why was not just gone. He was being unwritten from reality, and the rule was now the pen. Rules don't always exist to protect you. Sometimes they exist to protect everything else from you, from your curiosity, from your attention. If this story made you feel even a little bit uncomfortable, press that like button. It lets me know you appreciate this kind of slow, creeping dread. And for more stories that explore the unsettling quiet, subscribe to When Lights Out. Thanks for watching.